We're live here, USCFootball.com. Utah week, USC versus Utah. We are live here. We've been doing this every week, Thursday at noon, right at noon. And we got Keely, who came in at like noon minus 3 minutes.
False. You always shame me. I'm here on time. That's all that matters.
She was here on time. And
early. That's early for you.
Yeah,
3 minutes.
And Shotgun Spratling, who's here. We'll turn this a little bit.
He's fancy with a little flare on top.
He is. He's
It's my normal travel attire.
Oh.
Yeah,
Today's a travel day.
He's traveling.
After working here and another job, but then travel.
All the things you do.
He's heading back to Georgia.
Georgia.
So he won't be when they do their. They're going to do their Family Feud podcast a little bit later. He's not going to be able to give you his, as seen on the sidelines notes, right? Because you're not going to be
next week. Yeah, no, it'll be like Washington State. I'll have to quiz you next week.
Maybe we'll have a guest on that or something. Or yeah, okay. So quick update. We've had a whole bunch of Peristyle podcasts going up. They're going to be recording one a little bit later too. But this is our live video show where we talk about the USC Trojans and what's going on. I don't think we have to talk a whole lot about the Oregon State game because it was kind of a meh, like whatever, 38-10. It was, but the big one coming up. Two big ones coming up. USC versus Utah. So USC's 3-1 in the Pac-12 conference. Utah's 1-1, but they're probably the other favorite outside of USC. So should be a really good one. This is going to do a lot this weekend to determine who wins the Pac-12 South. And of course, USC travels to Notre Dame after that. If you have any questions or comments or topics you would like us to talk about, we like to make this an interactive Facebook Live show. Keely will be monitoring all of that. It sounds like there's something going on. Is there like some funny stuff that people write some funny stuff in already? Or?
No, he just couldn't find our site, so I had to help him.
Because we merged.
Yes.
Yeah, the Facebook has merged.
So Facebook Live, so we've had, because we are now part of the 247 Sports Network, coming over from Scout, we had our own Facebook page. We had a lot of likes. The 247 USC people run. Chris Trevino was running that for the last couple of years. They had a really big page too. So now they're merged into one. I think we've lost some of our old Facebook Live videos, so I'm going to look into re-uploading those again once the thing's merged over. But so it's a bigger Facebook page. Hopefully, it's a bigger Facebook audience and stuff for us. But if you're new, because you haven't seen this from before, this is what we try to do every week. We'll do live stuff from games and things like that. But these have been pretty fun. I think they're pretty informative, guys.
If you're new, welcome.
Yes.
If you're not, welcome back.
Welcome back. And so what we want to do is talk about USC and Utah, any kind of questions you've had. We've all been at practice all week, talking about what's going on.
What does that look for?
Yeah.
What does that look for?
Some longer than others. Just kidding. Don't worry.
Shotgun has been writing his some really long pieces, so...
Yeah, working on my participation chart.
Yes, you were doing a good job.
All right. So you definitely have to check out Shotgun's participation chart. That goes up every time. I try to get them to do it before Tuesday, but it's usually been like Wednesday in the middle of practice. But whatever, we're doing that stuff now. And game notes, right?
Game notes this week. I haven't done any game notes this season because normally I get to the first or second quarter, and I just run out of time for the week because there's a lot of stuff going on. I want to get the participation chart out so Ryan doesn't try to throw me under the bus for not getting it out on Tuesday. But this week, I was already halfway through, and I had a bunch of notes already, and I texted Keely last night. I was like, I might as well just go ahead and finish this. And that's what I did last night. I stayed up until like 5 or 6 in the morning and finished those. So I got those posted this morning, so you can check those out. It's like if you are interested in the details of the game, there's plenty of details there. It's about 6,500 words, so... it's broken down by the quarters, so if there was one play you remember in particular and you want to know what happened on it, there's a good chance that I might have noted something on that play.
Yeah, so those are definitely must-reads. Check them out. Shotgun puts a lot of work into those. I try to do a little shotgun-y stuff. I did upon further review, Sam Darnold, I charted all of his throws. Actually, I have like I'll move the camera real quick. So I got some notes over there. You can kind of see on my board, like all of his throws, the good, when he had good protection, when he had, hopefully you don't get sick looking at that thing there. Crazy. And, all that stuff. So basically showing that under pressure, he had not been as good as he was last year. Last year, he was one of the best in the country, and this year, not. So I'm going to keep doing that throughout. And then Keely's been putting up a ton of videos. Instant analysis you have to watch because We were on the field last week, and Clay Helton was walking off and told Dan and Keely, great job on instant analysis. I watch it every time. So Clay Helton's watching instant analysis. You should watch instant analysis.
I know. That's the bar.
Keely likes the pressure too, you know.
Yeah, he said that right before we were about to start for the instant analysis for Oregon State, and I was like, no pressure. Now I know I'm directly speaking to the head coach of USC, but it was okay. It worked out.
I mean, really, all I wanted to ask him was about Washington State, what he thought of that instant analysis.
I hope he didn't watch it.
Since that became such a topic of discussion.
A viral sensation.
Yeah. That was definitely a good one. And even if I'm like standing around Keely, she doesn't like it. She doesn't want me to like watch her and like.
I was like that in high school sports too. Like my coach would be like, "Hit the ball," and I just like completely miss it because I like can't like deal with people watching me, which is something I should get over.
Gotta be better.
Considering your job is to have people watch you.
I know, so it's a little backwards, but no, it's okay.
Right. Cool. All right. Any takeaways, I guess, from practice this week? A couple notes maybe that they did some ones versus ones. Thought that was sort of interesting. Any thoughts there, guys?
It begs the question, because Helton said that they wanted to do that specifically to mimic Utah's edge rushers against kind of a newish O-line, which begs the question, why not do that earlier? If you're going to mimic Utah, can't you mimic other teams, especially with how injured they are now, if they were doing that for injuries?
I don't know. It seemed like they got a little bit healthier this week, actually.
A little bit, yeah. Chuma Doga wasn't practicing on Tuesday, just watched, didn't even rehab, and then come Wednesday, he was like a full participant almost.
Yeah.
So it was a 180 for sure.
I mean, I saw him after the game, and he looked like he was walking pretty good. So I was kind of surprised he wasn't dressed at all on Tuesday. Maybe not just to do some stuff on Rehab Island or something like that. But then he's back on Wednesday. Daniel Morabebe comes back this week. Maybe even he plays a week earlier than they expected. You know, the original timetable was to get him back for Notre Dame. He was dressed and looked really good this week. Looked like he went through full workout, well, not full, almost a full workout on Tuesday and Wednesday. It seemed like he's still building up a little bit, but I think maybe for a limited usage, he might be available on Saturday. So it'd be interesting to see if he's back as well.
I tried to push him on it. He said he was like 97% healthy, and he was like, I'm definitely not going to come back if I'm not 100%. But I tried to push him on it, and he's like, oh, no, we'll see. Like, the plan is still Notre Dame, but I don't know. And I was like, helpful, really helpful. But, yeah, so the mystery is still there.
Well, he was telling Clay Helton previously that he was 100%, and Clay Helton was like, well, we found out after the first game. It was like, maybe it's more like 85%. So whose 100% is it going to be? Is a question. And then Clay was asked about it, I believe, yesterday. You know, how is that determination going to be made? Said, oh, it'll be up to the doctors. It'll be up to Daniel. And then he went, well, it'll be mostly up to Daniel. You know, I'm really going to listen to him.
Interesting.
So he's already told you previously that he incorrectly gave you a percentage, and you went with it then, and now you're going to listen to him more than the doctors. I don't know. It's kind of confusing on that regard. But you know, I feel like he's going to play this week, and if he plays, it just changes the offense.
Yeah.
Because he's a guy that can get open over the middle, and that's something they've been missing a little bit. And to be able to take some of the pressure off Deontay Burnett over the middle as well, so teams can't bracket or do some other things to kind of limit him, and then kind of single up on everybody else, which is what has kind of been happening some the last couple games. And
it's worth noting that Deontay Burnett is not exactly 100%. He didn't really practice this week, but he's also a guy who you don't necessarily need to practice. He can do what he does.
He gonna play.
He's play.
He's veteran days.
Yeah, they get veteran days.
Crazy.
But the offensive line, people are like, oh, it's all banged up. When it comes down to it, it might just be kind of what you saw in the second half of the Texas game, because Chuma Doga could be right tackle, Andrew Voorhees could be playing right guard.
Chuma Doga wasn't in the second half.
That was Doga was out in the second half of the Texas game. So he came in for Vianney. What was it? I think it was the
Western Michigan. He came
Western
in for
Michigan.
A couple plays.
Yeah, okay, yeah. But it could be Voorhees, who's got a lot of playing time playing right guard, and then everybody else like the regular starters from the beginning of the year. At least that's potential.
Yeah,
we'll see.
We'll see how long Chuma can last on his left ankle. So
he might be a guy that they rotate in, a couple series, give him a series and see how it feels, see how he reacts to it. With an ankle, sometimes you worry about it swelling up again. When you first injure an ankle, that's the big concern. Where a lot of times you can continue to play on something as long as you don't sit down and take the shoe off and then it swells up and then it's trouble. Maybe they try to get several plays out of him early and then shut him down after a certain play limit or something. I'm kind of curious to see how they use him as well.
But having the possibility of Chuma Doga is huge, considering how physical and big Utah's D-line is. anything you can get from Chuma will be helpful.
Yeah, I think Chuma's probably been, if he hasn't been their best lineman, then he's been, number 2 there. He's been very good, and he has the ability to be really physical as well on that right side.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really tough. Clay Helton said yesterday the best defensive front they're going to see. Utah's really stout up front, so that's going to be a tough one. And we're just not sure. There's really 2 different teams. It's funny what Clay Helton said yesterday. He's like talking about the quarterbacks. He's like, yeah, Tyler Huntley and Troy Williams are really similar, because he was asked about how do you prepare for 2 different guys, and I was like, no, that's not the case. And everyone knows that they're not very similar. They're both right-handed, I guess, but that's about it. So Troy Williams, Huntley just adds a whole nother dimension to this offense. He's just so much more of a dynamic player. And I get Clay Helton doesn't want to kind of say, he's not going to say yeah, they're 2 different guys. This guy sucks or whatever. It's not, because Troy Williams beat them last year, but Huntley, anyone you talk to on the Utah camp, they know it's like instead of having like a placeholder at quarterback who's just kind of keeping things together, Huntley's the guy that really makes things run and makes it a dynamic offense. If he can play, this is a whole different Utah team.
Yeah, playmaker versus placeholder.
Yeah.
And then in that regard. And Troy Williams had his best game of his career against USC last year. Basically was hitting on all of his throws. It helped that he could just throw up to Tim Patrick, and he was able to, out-muscle Dory Jackson, get some jump balls and different things like that. Troy Williams wasn't very good last week against Stanford, and I watched some of that game in the second half, and he threw a couple interceptions. Tried to do a little too much late when they were down. So he kind of controlled the game, looked like the third quarter when I was watching, but in the fourth quarter when they were behind, he tried to do a little too much. The difference in Troy Williams and Tyler Huntley is dynamic enough to get out of the pocket and cause problems, and USC has had some issues with that previously. So we'll see if he does play, if they can contain him. Do they try to spy with John Houston? Do they try to do some things like that? If it's Troy Williams, he can run as well, but he's not a run-first guy. Yeah. He wants to throw first. That's the difference in the 2 guys. Both of them are athletic, but Tyler Huntley is a dynamic athlete versus, the ability to just get out of the pocket, and if there's an opening, can run like Troy Williams can.
Keely, what do you think about the whole Sam Darnold apologizing, not apologizing? Rolling the eyes.
Sorry, no, because I think it's much to do about nothing.
Okay.
I was partially in Sam's scrum, and then I interviewed Tyler Vaughn, so I didn't hear the quote, but from what I heard and what I watched, he was asked a question about tendencies and the offense, and so he said, yeah, we maybe need to change our tendencies. It wasn't like we need to change the play calling, we suck. And that's kind of what it got interpreted as. And then
by some
yeah.
Or one.
And also there was a direct quote going on around that he never said, and so then it was well, are you going to talk to Sam about it on the conference call? And then it just became a thing that didn't need to be a thing. That's what I have to say about it. I just don't think it was a thing.
Yeah. Okay. Sometimes there can be a quote, and then some people I got a text yesterday from what I tweeted about that they said they're similar, that Helton said they were similar quarterbacks. And someone sent me a text. Did Helton really say they were identical? And I'm like, okay, first of all, I never said that. He never said that. No. So there's a telephone game that can kind of go on. And I think that, like you said, sort of spiraled out of control. And then the whole Sam said he apologized. Clay said he didn't apologize. So that it made it even kind of weirder.
Yeah.
Just kind of weird. Sam was right. The quote that I read that he said was correct. Is hey, if we see that there's plantar tendencies, we got to change something up.
Yeah.
And then he went back and what he apologized for, he said, was he went back and looked at the film and said that wasn't it. He said it was just his emotions getting the best of him. I think maybe he was fibbing a little bit there about, he saw that wasn't it at all. I think there are some tendencies. I think there's some routes where the receivers, the way they run the route, DBs have been able to pick up on it and jump on it. And that's what football is. Chris Hawkins has talked about it plenty, about how, he reads Jack Jones on his interception, said, hey, I read the splits, it was cut splits, I saw that, I thought it was going to be out route, that's why he jumped the route and was able to, he broke as soon as the receiver started to plant his foot and turn his shoulders, Jack Jones was already coming forward. So that's part of the game. You try to find those tendencies, you try to find that smallest little thing that, hey, is the tight end, Josh Follow one time gave away a play so bad, I was looking at him on the play, and he's on the right side, and he completely looks on the left side. And there's no reason to really look that far over, if you're not going to be pulling that way, which is exactly what he did, and he just kind of stared down that spot and that linebacker on the other side. I don't know if the defense necessarily picked up on it because I was behind them, but it was a stop for no gain or 1 yard gain or something. So there's small things that if you notice a player does, if he puts his hand in a different placement before he runs a certain route, there's small things that players don't even realize that they're doing and tendencies they have. It's just like in baseball when a pitcher is tipping his pitches. He doesn't know that he's like, oh, I'm digging deeper for this, whatever. He has to go back and look at the film study, or someone has to tell you, oh, you're doing this, and that's why they're beating up on you on this certain pitch or whatever it may be that way.
I guess the reason why I rolled my eyes is because, he gave us honesty. It wasn't a canned answer. It wasn't like a coach speak thing that Darnold gave us. And then we kind of crucify him for it. And then if he gave us no, there's nothing we need to change, we would have gotten mad at him for that too. So I don't understand why we had to punish him for honesty in that sense. I don't know. Because then come another game, he's just going to be like, no, I think we were fine.
Yeah.
Because you're the quarterback of USC.
I know.
And because the offense is not performing to their potential.
I know.
But I think what the reporters that were kind of harping on were trying to do was saying that he was harping on the play calling. But I think shotgun is a good point. It's not just, it can be player tendencies too. I mean, there's real subtle things. If you talk to defensive players, they'll look for, if it's an offensive lineman and you're wondering if it's going to be a run or a pass, look at their fingers. They're on the ground. Are they pressured on so they look like they're going to be going forward, or they're kind of light because they're going to bounce backwards? I mean, there's really little things that you can give plays away to a defense. It's not necessarily about play calling and stuff like that.
And he said we. It wasn't like a T and Tyson thing,
One example is the slant pattern that Stephen Mitchell runs. They complete for the fourth down. The DB broke on the ball just as quick as Stephen Mitchell was breaking on it. And when I rewatched it, I don't know if Stephen Mitchell intentionally did this, but his first two steps he runs inside, and then he tries to break his route for the slant. Sometimes you try to sell a different route by going inside and then cutting inside versus going outside and cutting inside. So sometimes you try to mix up the tendencies to fool a DB, but that time it looked like he was already going towards inside, and that kind of cut down the angle of his break, and it looked like the DB kind of read immediately that he thought it was going to be a slant too, and he broke on it at the same time. Stephen Mitchell made a very nice catch on the play.
That was a low percentage play for a fourth down. That was whoa. That was very high risk there as far as trying to make something work. And if he tipped his pitch, if he gave a tell and showing that it was going inside, I didn't even notice that. But that's great that you saw that when you rewatched it.
Shall we take some questions?
Sure.
We have multiple questions about the O-line. How did they look in practice this week?
I mean, amazeballs, they were awesome. No, I mean, they're so far away. I don't know how much you can see, but they're very far away from us. It's really hard to kind of evaluate the offensive line during practice. But
I mean, just having Toa back, last game, I think that's a big boost for him. Yeah. I think I didn't pay particular attention to Austin Jackson in the past game like I did at Washington State. However, I think he's much more comfortable at left tackle. I thought there was a couple plays where at right tackle where he just didn't have the same burst or the same blocking ability on a play. Clayton Johnston looked really good on a couple times in the game. Just looking at him at practice, you can't really tell. Yeah. I mean, it's such a matchup thing every game. And the biggest thing for the offensive line is just communication. There's still times where either the defensive call is just so good that they back out someone at zone blitz from one side, overload like Texas did, and USC doesn't swing the protection to the side where the blitzers are coming, and then it becomes there was one particular play where Sam Darnold has to throw really quick, and the reason why is because you have three rushers coming from the right side against two pass blockers, and then Nico actually went to the other side where there was only two guys coming. So it could have been 3-on-3, 2-on-2. Instead it was 3-on-2 and 3-on-2, which is not good for the offense because you don't want that free rusher. So they have to figure out how to identify those blitzes and make those calls and make those switches early. I talked to Chris O'Dowd a little bit. He said that was one of the biggest things with Washington State is that they didn't shift the coverages really well. They let too many the game-winning play for Washington State, creating the fumble, He said that one's one where the offensive lineman on the left side of that play had to do a better job of communicate and say, no, I got this guy, and switching really quickly versus two guys blocking one and one guy coming free.
Did you talk to Chris O'Dowd, or did you mean Nico Fala?
Chris O'Dowd.
Okay, so has he been around, or?
He was on the sideline before our last game, and
okay.
From his days at USC, I know him a little bit. So I
Yeah.
asked him about the offensive line play, and he was very riled up about it, very emotional.
Yeah.
He's like, I can't, he said he was watching it and yelling stuff at the TV too. So
maybe we'd have him come on your podcast, or we could have do an interview with him
Maybe
or
we'll
something.
do it.
He looks. Last time I saw him, he was super fit in shape. It's funny, you see old offensive linemen, not old, but just former offensive linemen who don't play anymore. Sometimes they're enormous, and sometimes they look almost like regular people, which they don't look like regular people when they're 6'5", 300 pounds. You just don't look like a regular person. And then he's is he still that way? He's trimmed down a lot.
Yep.
Looks a lot better. Yeah. Props to him.
James says, Ryan, your prediction about Tyler Vaughn's breaking out is coming true.
Oh
I've been
my
pleased
God.
with his progression.
Oh
Bring it up some more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys don't know how many times that Ryan brings this up.
So
We were
bad.
at practice. What was it? It wasn't so bad.
Yes.
Tuesday's practice.
Tuesday's practice, I was just I got to mention Tyler Vaughn's at least once. So I'm like, hey, Tyler Vaughn's is awesome. And he does some of this ridiculous, Shotgun didn't see it was backwards to it, but
Best catch I ever heard.
it was falling back, one hand, it was
this.
no way you should have caught the ball.
And
Jack Jones was running with him, looks at us and goes, did he catch that?
Yeah.
We said, yes. He's like, oh, he couldn't believe it.
Yeah, Jack went and congratulated him basically after that play. He's like, can't do anything about that one.
But it's funny,
that-
whenever I mention him at practice, he usually does something ridiculous soon afterwards. The one practice where I think it was the Monday before Washington State, it was he just went off, and it was that's why I said it was the coolest practice, the best practice I'd seen in a long time. Shotgun mentioned the Adoree Jackson one where he scored all those touchdowns. That was awesome, but he's been pretty special.
So the question is, if you started saying his name more during games, is that what it is? And that's why he's been playing better the last two games?
I can't say it more. I say it all the time. But I was saying it even when he didn't get a target in the second game. He did, I think
so it's not all you, is what you're saying.
I'm helpful. I think I'm just when you make predictions, you want them to be correct, but it's more about what you see, and you're like, I don't think I'm stupid. I think this is right. I think he's going to be really good, and then they don't play, and it's we don't control who plays, but we can tell you if he is in there, he's probably going to do something good.
Ryan really just wants this prediction to be correct because he's struggling in the Pac-12.
I'm back above 500. Yeah, you can see that on the board. I beat Dave this last week, thank God. But yeah, I was 4-1. My picks against the spread in the Pac-12 last week. So we'll see 6 games in the Pac-12 this weekend. Everybody's playing.
Ooh. Enrique says, is there a true deep threat amongst the receivers?
There's deep threats, but will he catch the ball is the question.
Yeah.
I mean, Velus Jones has been able to get behind people, but he's not been. He and Sam Darnold can't get on the same page. And then, yesterday, he had one that hit off his fingertips. Would have been a touchdown. The drill they were doing. He's just not coming down with the catches. Regardless of whether it's him not making the catch or him not being able to adjust to a ball or Sam not throwing it where he's going. Those two just haven't been able to get on the same page. Like they were in the spring, when they were facing some somewhat lighter secondary because of some guys being out. But that's an option. If they need something, they got to get something to get deep.
Yeah.
I mean, Stephen Mitchell, they tried to hit him, and he had a step on the defender, and Sam threw it a little bit inside. And, it was a 40 or 50-yard throw in the air, I believe. It's in my notes. But if you can lead him just a bit, the safety had bit on the play action. It was open. He just couldn't get the ball to him that time. There's been chances. I think with Stephen Mitchell back, I mean, he had the big catch in the Stanford game or Texas game. So I think that's another option on the outside. I don't think Tyler Vaughn is a huge deep ball threat. However, if you throw it, he's going to catch it. If you throw it in bounds, unlike the Cal game or the Washington State game where he gets the offense pass interference phantom call. So they have the options. They have to. Yeah, I think they have to try those options a little bit more. I think they have to kind of stretch the defense. Even if it doesn't work, I think you have to stretch the defense just to make them know that it will come. And then when you get your chance, you got to hit one or two.
You got to catch it. And and when people think deep threat, it doesn't mean it has to be the fastest guy on the team. That's why people look to Velus Jones, because he's so fast. But we just haven't seen him be able to, catch those balls. It all has to work. It all has to hook up. So a guy like Stephen Mitchell or Deontay Burnett you saw Juju Smith catch a lot of deep balls. Was he like some speedster? No, but he could go downfield, body control, make a catch in traffic, whatever. I think they got some guys that can do that, but you have to throw those routes. But as far as just like run past everybody, that there's no like just getting open on your, it's like just run past people. That's Velus Jones. But we just haven't seen it materialize yet.
I mean, Tyler Vaughn's had the long touchdown catch to start the game. I think part of it is the run game. If you get the run game going early, I mean, Oregon State, USC went play action like 3 or 4 plays in a row on one drive. I think the Josh Follow touchdown drive. So they just kept working that, and the safeties would have to come up to help out because USC could run the ball against them. If you can run the ball, that brings those safeties up a little bit and gives you a little bit more room maybe on the back end. And if you can go play action, that gives you a little bit better chance in that regard. But like I said, they have to hit on 1 or 2. I think that's going to be one of the big keys against Utah is can they stretch the defense, because if not, that defensive line can cause havoc in the backfield, and especially if they can bring up another defender, all of a sudden you can't run the ball. It's going to be really tough on the offense if they can't do that.
Yeah.
Agreed. We have many questions asking about Porter. When is he due back?
The ghost of Porter Gustin?
Yeah.
We did see him though.
At the game.
Yeah, at the game.
In a boot.
In a boot.
And it was like what was interesting about the boot, which I don't know that I've seen this before. It was like the old Reebok pumps. It's like it had a pressure thing in it where you could like squeeze the ball and add more pressure to the boot.
I think I might have had one of those. Like when I hurt my ankle years ago, I think I might have had one of those too. But it's very interesting. But to go from how many weeks ago was that? And you're talking he's in a boot now. Do you think that he needed to play 4 days after his surgery? Like he's still in a boot. Like we know he has the bicep tear and stuff too. But to be, that just baffles me even more that he played that soon after surgery. If he didn't really have surgery again, right? I mean, I don't know if they had to put the screws back or whatever, because I know they kind of came loose. But he's still in a boot this many weeks later. It just seems like, maybe they brought him back a little too early.
I mean, you're going to be in a boot regardless, just because they don't want any injury to it. You see a lot of times when guys have a sprained ankle and, they may even practice on it, but then you see them after practice and they'll have, the boot on just to make sure that they don't slip or do anything and, mess it up even worse. So I don't think the boot is a huge deal, but I completely agree. It's like you got a half of him out. You got one half out of him after that injury, rather than potentially shutting him down for a couple weeks and then having him the last couple games.
Yeah.
So
we don't know. I mean, he's not even been at practice. So
I mean, yeah, it'd be curious. If he even comes back. I mean, there's still a potential that he could redshirt, try to get the medical hardship waiver. If he comes back, how do they balance that with Christian Rector?
That leads into the next question by Anthony. What does USC do once Porter Gustin comes back? Christian Rector has been so good, I feel like they're going to eschew the nickel for the base.
I don't think that Clancy would do that against a team that goes 3 or 4 wides. I think he's still going to stay with the nickel. The question becomes, how much does the opponent try to run up the middle? Can USC get away with putting Rasheem Green as the quote-unquote nose tackle beside Christian Rector? Can you do that? Or do you rotate those 3 players? You rotate Christian Rector, Uchenna, and Porter, as some kind of a 3-man rotation for those 2 spots? I mean, there's some options there.
Yeah.
And I talked to KU about, about Christian Rector and, about his versatility, and he said it just allows us to do a little bit more because you can stand him up, you can, you put him head up with a tackle, you can put him outside. There's just some different things you can do with him. He said basically the only position he can't play is the nose tackle position because of his weight. But he didn't really say that Rasheem Green could. So maybe that's a solution against a team that throws the ball a lot and doesn't run. First you got to get Porter back before you even have to have that discussion. So. Yeah.
But he was coming in at the nose on 3rd downs, though, right? And for
yes,
Fatu.
He was.
So he's done it already. That's really where he started.
Was it as the nose? I mean, it's just kind of too. He's not really lining up straight over the center. So it's just 2 defensive linemen at that time because they're pass rushing, so they leave the middle open because they're expecting to throw on 3rd and long. That's how they originally were using him. So maybe that's what they do. And maybe just for rundowns, maybe they shift Rasheem down a little bit closer to the center. I don't know. There's some options there with that. But I also think that guys like Josh Fatu has played pretty well. I think Malik Dorton has done some really nice things. Brandon Peely this game. He played 21 defensive snaps, and he's going to make an immediate impact. He got 3 tackles, I think. He has some work to do, obviously. There's some technique things he does. He stands up a little bit too tall early. But there's so much potential there. And now that they put him out there, I think you're only going to see his reps continue to get more and more as the season progresses.
Mm-hmm. Zach says, will we see more Trayvon Sidney Saturday? Every time he's got a chance in a game, he's made the most of it. Excited for him to contribute more. Maybe he should get a look at punt return.
That'd be interesting. The punt return stuff, he caught some, him, Tyler Vaughn's, like they've mixed some other guys in, but if they didn't bench Ajene Harris after fumbling and they played him when he was too injured to even play defense, I just don't see them making the shift during the, we'll see. I don't know, but they just seem to trust him back there. Sidney's kind of like the shotgun Spratling of the USC Trojan football team. Like when he gets in, he just makes a play. Shotgun's one career catch in high school was a touchdown, right?
No, so, every career catch.
I'm sorry, every catch he's had was a touchdown.
Oh my God.
You gotta sell it right.
Yeah. So
that's what I said the same thing with Josh Wallow in my notes. It's like Josh Wallow can retire now, and he can go and forever be like, yeah, every pass I caught in college was a touchdown. I averaged 30 yards a catch.
Oh my goodness.
It's pretty fun. Yeah. So I think he's done good things when he's in there. I think he's moved up in the slot, like in the rotation. It looks like in practice. So yeah, I think you're going to see more of him.
That bubble screen was nice. I thought it was Deontay. When I was going through the highlights, I was like, oh, that's a nice hit by Deontay. And I was like, oh, it's Trayvon Sidney.
Broke a tackle and got outside. The week where Deontay was injured and Velus was injured, it was kind of like he was on an island in the slot. He had to run basically every play by himself, and he took advantage of that opportunity. I think he has worked his way up into the number two slot guy. When Deontay Burnett runs a deep route or something and has to get a break, is Trayvon Sidney coming in. They still use Velus Jones, and he'll have his own package just because he does different things. The jet sweeps they've done with him, they've done some different things. He's that deep option. He has that speed, and they still want to use that. However, on a play-by-play basis, if they need a backup for Deontay, I think it's Trayvon Sidney. And I thought he played pretty well when he was in there. He had a couple of block opportunities that he came back on one, I think, on the Tyler Petite catch and made a nice block. And Josh Mortabebe also had a really nice block on that same play. The one where Sam Darnold throws it 3 yards and they pick up 22. That's how your quarterback throws for over 300 yards and he doesn't have his best game. Get a little help.
Yeah, he definitely got some help there. And with Burnett being banged up a little bit, you might see a lot more of Sidney. And Sidney caught a ball in this game before Burnett. I think Vaughn's had the first 3 catches, and then Sidney had the next one. So
Bishop Amat.
It was all Bishop Amat for the first 4 passes of the game.
You know what's interesting to me is Clay Helton said that they shut down Deontay early in the game because he had a toe injury, right? So he's been dealing with a shoulder. They said, we shut him down. Well, I went back. He played 7 of the last 8 plays that the starters played. So I don't know where they shut him down. I mean, they shut everyone down, technically. Yes. They shut Sam Darnold down by putting in the backups, but Deontay was still in there. Now, he didn't play all the snaps in the third quarter, in the third quarter, he took the drive off before that, but then the final drive the starters ran, he was in there almost the entire time. So
weird.
I don't really understand that.
We got one for you, Ryan. Steven says, Ryan, is it championship or bust in the eyes of USC fans? It never seems like our wins are good enough in the eyes of SC fans. Say we win this week against Utah. Next week, everyone will downplay the win and come back with criticism of how the play is. Please enlighten me.
Yeah, that's probably true. I think, okay, so this is Clay Helton's second year. Do you expect to win a championship and all that kind of stuff? Well, last year, after the 1-3 start, he turned things around. And I think if he turned it around and it was 8-4 and you win the Holiday Bowl or something, it's okay, this year, win the South somehow and try to win the Pac-12. I think that's realistic. Well, going on a 9-game winning streak and winning the Rose Bowl in dramatic fashion and having everybody anoint Sam Darnold as the number 1 pick in the draft, that just raised expectations to maybe an unrealistic level. And that's what you're seeing. So it's not you're looking at, USC, I honestly believe if they went out, they're going to go to the playoff. Like, barring some crazy thing, I think USC wins out. They're fine. So they're okay. I mean, the position-wise, they're good at 5-1. They were 3-3 last year at this spot, but I would argue they were playing better last year at 3-3, and they were getting better. And you like the direction that's going. I think the what has USC fans concerned is, like, yes, they're 5-1. They played really well against Stanford, and that's just about it. This Oregon State team is awful. I mean, their coach, I mean, they are so bad, and they blew so many opportunities, just fumbling a snap inside USC's 5-yard line. Not that USC forced, they just fumbled it, and, like, they were gone. Or roughing the punter, giving USC another score. Like, there were so many opportunities that Oregon State had to at least make it a closer game. And they're just horrible. And so USC, the way Oregon State played, should have named the score and won like 100. I mean, it was ridiculous the way how bad they were. So that's what I think the expectation is if you play like you did against Oregon State, you're not beating Utah, you're not beating Notre Dame on the road. I think that's what it is. It's not just about fans being unhappy at 5-1. The expectation level is high because of the talent on this team and everything and what they were able to do last year. You're just not seeing them playing anywhere close to what they were playing at the end of last year. And I think that's kind of the main thing.
And I mean, Oregon State is bad, really bad. I mean, they're not 1916 Cumberland bad, the team that lost 222-0 to Georgia Tech. But they're pretty bad. And
their coach just walked away. I mean, their coach walked away from $12 million and said, "I'm out."
I was wondering if they needed a coach, because I'll take the rest of their contract.
Yes.
I love you guys, but I'll take $12 million over you.
Don't blame me.
You would still do all this stuff, right?
Sure, yeah.
I mean, you have multiple jobs already.
In between my game planning, yeah.
B.A. Poppy Miller says, why hasn't USC played up-tempo offense?
I don't think they are. I like when they go up-tempo. I don't think that they have enough trust that they're going to do the right assignments all the time.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it. I think that they go more up-tempo, and it leads to the potential for more busts. And I think that's, especially with a young offensive line now, I think that's part of it.
Yeah, I think it's trust. And I think it's funny. Steve Sarkisian was like, we're going to do 100 whatever plays a game, and that lasted for like a game. And then it just went, and it just, I think the next week after that, they played Stanford. They ran like 55 plays or something. And that's just not USC. I think you could try to do that. They have to do it in spots, though, because when you get momentum and you can put a defense on its heels, you have to be able to do that at least in spots.
Tom asked an intelligent question because he's been paying attention. Who's going to be the long snapper?
If Damon Johnson was dressed this week, if Damon Johnson is not able to go, then Wyatt Schmidt, you just basically rotate everybody. Wyatt Schmidt becomes the holder. I mean, moves from holder to long snapper, and Reed Budrovich comes in from punter to holder. And then there's the possibility you could use Sam Darnold as a holder. They've done that previously.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the first play if they wanted to run some trick play with Sam Darnold, let him throw the ball. But otherwise, it's going to be, Budrovich and Wyatt Schmidt as the long snapper.
Yeah. Utah's got some snapper problems, too.
The son of the coach.
Yeah, he's one of them. But they had like a highly ranked guy. I don't know if it was a scholarship guy, but he got hurt. He might be back for this game. Look, Utah looks like they're going to get a bunch of guys back. Like Kylie Fitz might come back in this one.
Former USC commit.
And then UCLA signee, and then now he plays at Utah. But they've had some guys banged up. I think they're going to get a bunch of them back. If Huntley comes back, obviously that's the biggest one. But they might get their long snapper back. They got the best kicker and punter, you could argue, in the conference. They made the greatest extra point ever. Was it Mark Gay, or Matt Gay, I think? Basically standstill. He's like a soccer guy, big number 97, and hit the most amazing extra point you'd ever going to see.
How the Stanford player didn't block it, I have no clue.
Yeah, it just barely made it over. And that was like to tie the spread, like at the end of the game. It was like the craziest. It was a huge Vegas extra point that got. But the snaps have been pretty terrible for Utah. So it's great. I mean, they have these great kickers, punters, and then they can't snap the ball. But they'll probably get better this one, especially if they get that guy back.
Behind Wyatt Schmidt, we saw Eric Cromanhook. I saw John Baxter spend some time after practice working with Brendan Peely, actually. And then Clay Helton actually jumped in and delivered a perfect long snap.
No eligibility.
No eligibility, but it was a perfect snap, so give him credit.
And like Jake Olson could, like, not for punts because you're not going to be able to cover a punt, but for a field goal. But he hasn't been in. He's only been in situations where they didn't rush, which I don't think that's. He says it's fine. Like, I want to see him like in a regular rush.
He's a big dude. He can handle it.
Yeah, it's like you can't hit the snapper anyway. Heldon's worried about if the play breaks down, but I think if it comes down to that, that would be a way better story to me, is if your snapper's hurt and he's the snapper, not like special treatment snapper. He's just the snapper.
Yeah. Chris
that would be great.
Yeah. Chris asks, is there any indication of which Utah QB will play?
Kind of discuss this. Utah's being very radio silent on it.
They don't talk about injuries at all.
And why would they?
We don't talk about injuries.
Yeah. So I put up a podcast with Dan Sorensen, who publishes UTZone.com. It's up on USCFootball.com now, and he's not sure. I kind of get the feeling he will. I might, we'll see, but we're not going to know really until the start of the game. My gut feeling just says he's going to play this one, but remember, Troy Williams played his best game ever against USC last year. So.
Mm-hmm. Our buddy Casey Cosgrove asked,
hi, Casey.
Half-season MVPs for OD and Rookie of the Year.
Okay.
Rookie of the Year, Stephen Carr.
Yeah, that's too easy.
Tyler Vaughns. Is he a rookie?
Are you counting him
that's
as
true. Rookie, not freshman. I'm still taking Stephen Carr.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
You're all fired.
Fight us, Ryan. Or just fire us. That works too.
Okay, so I would go Tyler Vaughns.
You'd be incorrect, but go ahead.
You could put Tyler Vaughns for offense if you really care that much.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. So for wait, does he want the offensive?
Offensive, defensive,
and Rookie of the Year.
Oh no, MVPs. I wouldn't put him as the MVP. Probably who's the offensive MVP? Rojo.
Ronald Jones.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Rojo's probably offensive MVP.
Deontay Burnett. Hold on. I think Deontay Burnett. He makes catches that extend drive in multiple places.
That's a good point. I think you might be right on that because of the struggles of some other receivers too, and the fact that Stephen Carr was able to jump in and replace Ronald Jones.
Yeah.
I'm gonna agree with you.
Thank
I'm changing my answer.
Wow, this is historic.
Dang. I mean, he did, but I think Rojo just has carried so much weight. I mean, that Washington State game when they had no passing offense, I mean, that 86-yard run.
Loss.
I know, but like without him, like where are they? I mean, they lose by like 30. Okay, so defensive MVP, Uchenna.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
That one's no doubt for me.
Okay.
Would Christian Rector count for like defensive Rookie of the Year?
I mean, if you want to go that far,
Rookie?
but he's not really.
No, he's not.
He's played.
He's played
Rookie
before.
In quotes.
So for Rookie of the Year, this is their first playing time. So this is the first time they're eligible, their first time they're playing. So guys like, so you could say Vaughns, you could say Stephen Carr.
You could say Reed Budrovich.
Reed Budrovich could be, I mean, he could be the team MVP.
Chase McGrath. He'd probably be my special teams MVP.
Oh, for sure. Without doubt.
I mean, either one of those two, it's hard to argue. Like, they would have to be co.
Nope. No co's.
Any defensive rookies? Like, who's not really, huh?
Possibly Peely?
He just hasn't played enough.
I know, but I guess half season now.
I think half
season.
season.
Levi Jones, basically the only two that are real
Jack
true.
Jones?
No, he played.
Okay, I'm giving
Keely
like
Ross
asterisks here.
A true rookie either, so yeah.
Okay, so probably have to go with Carr. I think by the end of the season, it might be Vaughns. We'll see. But I think Carr's just done more through the first half. But those are all, I think they're all good choices.
Yes.
Good one, Casey.
Let's see. Sorry, people were just putting comments. Casey asks, from what you have seen in practice, can Peely step in and play as good as Fala or Tui Pelotu?
Follow? I don't think. Well, he could play tight end. He is very athletic, but
Fatu, you mean?
I'm reading what they say.
Okay, I think he meant Fatu.
I mean, I want to see Brandon Peely because they actually changed the design of their kick return this past game. There was only one returner back instead of two because Stephen Carr wasn't back there. Jenny Harris was not back there either. So it was just Velus Jones. They added Brandon Peely as extra blocker in the back line. They also changed the front a little bit, made it bowed a bit, and didn't have 5 straight guys across. It was 4 with Cedric Ware about 10 yards back. I really like to see the ball. Like Christian Rector got to return a kick this past week. He got nice 10 yards and got to the 30-yard line. I want to see Brandon Peely get the ball in his hands.
Yes,
because he's an athlete, and he probably can make some guys miss. So he played some tight end in high school and 7-on-7. Yeah, I mean,
when you're that big, it's harder to make guys miss because there's a lot more target.
Oh, he can.
Yeah.
Beat him out of the way.
But to play, like, he could come in as a fullback. We've had that question before because I think he'd done that a little bit like at high school or something where he was just like this. But he was not as big as he was now.
There's just a lot of potential with that kid. I think that he can push those guys. The fact that they did something different, a little bit different with the substitution. I don't know if you guys noticed it, but instead of it just being Rasheem Green and Josh Fatu and basically being Rasheem Green the entire time, and every once in a while he gets a break, and Josh Fatu kind of gets 2/3 to 3/5 of the defensive snaps. That's how it normally goes. This week they would throw in Malik Dorton and Brandon Peely and switch those two in. It would just be 2 in, 2 out, 2 in, 2 out. So they'd play. They get a whole drive. If it was a short series, they get half a series, depending on the length of it. But they did more substituting on that defensive line. Maybe it was because of the heat. Maybe it's because they wanted to get guys more opportunities because of it being Oregon State, and you can do that. But the fact that they gave him that many opportunities and getting 21 snaps, and I think 14 of those were in the first 3 quarters, so that's a pretty good percentage for a backup there for Brandon Peely. It tells me that they're going to use him. They're going to use him more and more as the season progresses. He's only going to get better. And one of the reasons why they're going to have to play him this year is because of Marlon Tuipulotu's back. You don't really know with back injuries. It can be difficult for guys to come immediately back. So if he struggles to come back next year, Peely's going to be your starter. Yeah. And he may still be your starter over Tuipulotu or, those guys combined in some way because you're losing Kenny Bigelow for the little bit he plays. Josh Fatu is graduating as well. They have to have someone step up. So it's kind of like the Jack Jones last year where, he didn't really need to play, but they would throw him in there and give him they give him a couple series, especially in the second half of the season. They give him a couple series here, a couple series there, because next year he's going to be a guy that had to start, which is what maybe the reason why we're seeing Isaiah Langley. Maybe they fear that Iman Marshall will leave. Maybe that's why we're seeing Isaiah Langley start to get a couple more and more series the last couple games. But that's part of the reason why I think you'll see Brandon Peely, his playing time continue, because they know he's going to have to contribute next year.
Mm-hmm. Brian asks, do you think Sam trusts his wide receivers? Last year he seemed comfortable throwing in traffic, knowing Juju and Rodgers would make the play. He seems he's holding onto the ball longer this year.
I kind of think he trusts them. Well, get your thoughts. If you had some thoughts, Keely, go ahead. Did you?
No, you can go first.
No, I think he does. I think he's thrown in some bad situations. He's throwing to guys that maybe you probably shouldn't trust that are double covered at times, and you're kind of wondering why. But I think between Burnett and now Vaughns and Mitchell, I think he feels comfortable in those guys. He's throwing to like Petit when he's double covered and stuff sometimes. I think he'd feel more comfortable throwing it to Daniel Metorbebe or even like a Kerry Angeline who's not around. But it doesn't seem like it's stopping him from throwing to Petit, but I think you probably have more confidence it's going to be caught if it was a Metorbebe.
Yeah, I definitely think he was overthinking as the interception started happening. He was like kind of second guessing maybe, but I think like you said, with having Steven Mitchell back, having Tyler Vaughns emerge, he definitely trusts them more. It will be interesting to see now that you have that 3 lineup of Deontay, Tyler, and Steven, how he spreads the ball now versus when he didn't. Wazoo, he didn't really have a lot of guys that he trusts to throw to. So it'll be interesting to see that in the next game.
I'm curious to see how the receiver rotation works this week. Jalen Green practiced yesterday. Mm-hmm. Where does he fit in? I mean, they basically on the outsides, Deontay pretty much took the slot. Trayvon was his backup. On the outsides, though, it was kind of, they were coupled together. You had Steven Mitchell and Tyler Vaughns, the starters. When they went to the backups, it was Josh Mortabebe and Michael Pittman Jr. And then Joseph Lewis basically got relegated to garbage time. He didn't play at all until the last couple drives.
Yeah.
So
that was kind of surprising.
And then they burned Randall Grimes.
I think that partly is due with special teams and losing a guy like Greg Johnson.
And that's what Helton said. He was emphasizing it was special teams like multiple times yesterday.
I was still surprised when I saw it at first, just because it seems so late in the season, and you don't necessarily think he's going to jump into that receiver rotation. Maybe he does. He makes another play like he did against Oregon State. Maybe you're saying, we got to play him a little bit more. But I also thought that about Joseph Lewis after he made a couple third down catches against Washington State.
Yeah.
And
he was going to be the next guy.
He got relegated. So I don't know if you never know if there's something off the field. Hey, we need you to do this better or whatever it may be. He and Trayvon Sidney had to do some extra conditioning after practice. Trayvon told me it was because he was 5 minutes late to a tutoring session. So maybe that had something to do with it. I don't know. You never can speculate on those things. But it seemed like he had taken that next step and kind of moved up, and then all of a sudden he bounced back. We'll see this week when Jalen Green comes back. Do they rotate more, or do they do a similar where it's, okay, the starter's in, these are the backups, or they go position by position? That's one of the things I'm going to be looking at most from afar this weekend.
Do you think Jalen Green would get the nod over some of the younger guys just because of his blocking ability?
Depends on how the game is and the situations, I think. I don't think that he's obviously below Tyler Vaughn's now. Vaughn's is going to start. Stephen Mitchell's going to start.
Is he going to start, though? Like, is Vaughn's going to start?
He did start once with Jalen Green.
Okay, when Green was there?
The concussion game at Jalen Green, because Jalen Green actually played the first drive.
Okay,
yeah.
And Stephen Mitchell wasn't back, and obviously Stephen Mitchell is ahead of Jalen Green. So I'm pretty sure that Tyler Vaughn is going to start.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, T. Martin said he was definitely going to start.
Where does Jalen Green fall in after that? Is he behind Michael Pittman? Is he in front of him? Is he behind Joshua Moore-Bebe? Or is he in front? Where exactly in that pecking order is he? I'm curious to see that, and then how they kind of use those guys.
Q asks, I just tuned in, so not sure if this was covered. Do you think the struggles are due to T. Martin's poor play calling or Sam Darnold's struggles? Because we have a ton of playmakers.
It's like in general, I mean, it's like that's the big question, right? That everyone's like, why is the offense sort of struggling? I kind of think it's a lot of combination of things. I mean, we did talk about. I thought what made Darnold special last year was how he handled pressure, and Pro Football Focus did a great, had some great stats where he was the number 2 guy in the country when facing pressure and number 1 against the blitz. He did not do well against Washington State at a 0 passer rating. He did not do well against Oregon State. I put up a story on USCfootball.com about that. I think pressure is going to be there. Oregon State didn't get much pressure, and USC still didn't do well when they got it. Utah's going to have a lot more. So to me, the biggest part is about handling the pressure. Now, is it because of the offensive line? Is it creating more pressure? Is it because of the receivers aren't making plays? Is it because of him? Is there something wrong? I think it could be a combination of things, not play calling, all of that stuff. But he was so good under pressure, and it's so demoralizing to a defense when you almost get a sack and he makes a chunk play. Now it's like you almost get a sack, you get the sack, or he doesn't make a chunk play now. So that not having that as a weapon in your arsenal, I think, is big.
Yeah, and we asked him about it earlier this week, and he said, they punish teams when they blitzed last year. Yeah. This year, they're getting punished when teams blitz. And we asked him, and he said, I don't really know. And I think it is kind of a confluence of everything coming together. I talked about it with Zach Helfand, like, what exactly is going on with this offense? And it's like, well, the play calling's not great, and it can be very bad at times. Sam Darnold's not great and can be very bad at times, like the interception, just throwing with his arm against Oregon State. The receivers are not great and can be bad at times. The offensive line is not great and can be bad at times. Your running backs are about the only thing that has been a consistent positive for you. So I don't think you can – I know you guys all want to blame T. Martin. You want to just give that one adult, it's all his fault. It's one person. That's it. But I think it's a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And until units start playing better individually, then I don't think the team can play better offensively. And I think this is I think I said to Ryan or someone earlier this week I think this is the make or break game.
Yeah.
I think you can't play how you played against Oregon State and beat Utah. Not going to happen.
You're lose.
Anyone like you played against Oregon State.
You might could play like Wyoming.
Okay.
Utah State. I don't know. Former Gary Anderson team, Utah State. Maybe you can play them. You're not going to be able to play that way. You have to play better. If they play better and they play much better, then it shows a sign of progress.
Yeah.
And I think this team can progress into the back end of the schedule, play much better, and go on a run. If they don't play well, if they somehow win and don't play very well, I don't think that's going to happen. But then it just then the next week becomes that make or break game. But I don't think that'll happen. I think you have to play well or you're going to lose.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So if you play well, then I think that shows progress and the season will progress. if they don't play well, it shows that this team cannot do it.
Yeah.
I agree. Greg asks, our punt return has been bad. Jack Jones was electric with the ball in his hands in high school. Why isn't he getting a shot? Is he having trouble catching punts?
I haven't really seen him too much back there, right? He was more in the kickoff. Has he been doing? I don't remember seeing him field a bunch of punts.
So I took notes of who was doing punt return this week.
Okay.
It was Bubba Bolden, Tyler Vaughns, Trayvon Sidney, Ajane Harris, Keely Ross, Jack Jones, and Velus Jones.
Okay, so Jack, he did get in there.
He did get in there.
Okay.
But when he did kick off in the beginning of the season, he would drop his knee.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
That was the problem. It was taking a knee
And also they wanted to lighten his load because he played 97 plays the first game. He ends up playing 99 against Washington State, a lot of those on defense. But also there's several starters on defense that have been used maybe too much on special teams, in my opinion. Uchenna had to, he had to step in for Jordan Iosefa against Washington State. But also Christian Rector, and both of these guys, Christian Rector and Uchenna Nwosu, were taken off the punt coverage unit. But that was one I was like, why are these two defensive starters you need, you need to have that strength and that conditioning. They need to be good to go at the end because you're facing a team that throws the ball so well against Washington State. Why are you having those guys run? I think they punted 6 times. It was 6 extra 40-yard sprints.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just someone else has to be able to cover the punt. I think you have to be able to let your starters rest on things like that. I don't think you should have a bunch of starters on kickoff coverage or punt coverage. Either one of those. I know it's important. Obviously, it's important because you don't want to give up that explosive, and against Utah, that's going to be a danger because they're very good at returning kicks and punts. But you have to find someone that can step in and give, especially those D linemen, those pass rushers, an opportunity to rest on those type plays.
Part of the reason Shotgun's saying, and I think we got about 5 minutes left. I know you guys got to do your thing, but we have a couple questions. But part of the reason, Shotgun's saying if USC's not going to win if they don't play well is because I think there's a huge special teams advantage here for Utah. And USC's just been below average at best at special teams. And Utah's a team that can punish you with field position and just making every kick. And the good thing for USC is they've had their kicker's been good and their punter's been good. But that's individual plays they're making, not coverage, returns. It just hasn't been that kind of cohesiveness. And Utah usually has that. So I think you're going to have an advantage for Utah almost no matter what on special teams. So without playing well, it's going to be hard to get some of those kind of mystery yardage things. USC is going to be at a disadvantage on those aspects. So that's why you're going to have to play a lot better on offense if they played to win this game.
I think USC had actually been pretty good on the coverage units the last probably 3 games, besides that one punt last game where Damon Johnson got injured on, which I think Reed Budrovich actually punted the wrong direction. It looked like they showed up behind the offense look, and a bunch of guys were leaving towards the left, and the punt went towards the right. Now, maybe that was partially because Oregon State did something different on that punt versus any of the others. They put 2 returners back there, so possibly Reed got confused, or he didn't see one of the guys and tried to kick it away from the guy on the left, thinking he'd just kick it and it could roll, like a lot of times do. Because a lot of times they look and see where the guy is, and they just punt it basically away from him. And that's one of the reasons Reed's been able to get some of those 50 and 60-yard punts, because you bounce and then nobody's near to recover them or to catch them. Then you can get those extra yardage. So besides that, I thought the units have been pretty good. I like Bubba Bolden. I think he's done a really good job on it. Matt Lopes as well, and Juliana Falanico. Those are 3 guys that kind of stand out in my mind. And also Levi Jones.
Yeah, Levi Jones has done
4
a
guys
really good
that
job too.
off the top of my head that have done really well in those coverage units.
Tester Troy has a question directly for Shotgun.
Oh.
Do you think the USC should get more wide receivers involved by easy catches like the ones we get Burnett, screen, flare, and swing passes? Get them in a rhythm and get Sam more comfortable throwing to them.
I really like the way they went with the quick passes early against Oregon State. Get Sam in that rhythm. Try to do it. Washington State did the same thing with Luke Falk. Those quick hitches, those plays that you don't have to dissect the entire defense. You see one defender, you read him, you make that quick throw. Now, where that gets in trouble is that what teams have done after that first drive against Washington State. The DBs came up. They started pressing. If you can't hit that deep ball, which we talked about earlier, then the DBs can play up on the receivers more, and you can't get those easy passes. I mean, they did it a number of times against Oregon State. Oregon State's DBs would be 6-8 yards off. I mean, even on the goal line, it was after the fumble, they had 3rd and 31, and the play call was a run to the left. And Sam Darnold just rose up and threw it out. It was under center. He threw it out to Michael Pittman immediately because the DB was like 10 yards off. He's like, well, I got a better chance of getting, a chunk yard. Maybe he makes a guy miss and, goes for a big gain. And he got 10 yards, I think, on it. But those don't happen when the DBs are pressing. Now you can do some things to possibly get someone open if they are pressing, like the Josh Follow. The defender tried to press him at the line of scrimmage. He didn't get a great job, and then there was a zone defense behind. There was a big opening there because someone had a bust there. But you can scheme some ways, some pick routes or stuff if they come up and press to where maybe you can get some easy throws. I think they have to do that, get Sam in that rhythm. I think that's a big part of this game too.
Ed asks, he's noticed in Sam's passing that last year he passed the ball with blazing speed and right on accuracy, but that zip is gone. Any thoughts?
I don't think the zip isn't gone. I just think some of the mechanics are a little off, and some of the accuracy's not been where it was. But I don't think it's like his arm looks, significantly weak or anything. You guys think, or?
No, I think it's just accuracy.
Yeah.
I mean, the deep ball, even Oregon State, he was there, just not there.
I mean, the one of the biggest plays that shows that to me is they had a quick screen. They got, I think, right after the Cedric Ware long catch.
Which wasn't a great throw.
No.
Yeah.
Which he just threw it in the open area.
Yeah.
Which was
a great catch by
perfectly
Ware.
fine. It was a good, really great adjustment on that. If he throws that better, that's an easy touchdown. But sometimes, when a guy's that wide open, you're taught just throw it in the open area. Make sure you get the yards rather than trying to be too fine and overthrow him or anything like that. The play after that, they went 2-by-2 stacks on the outside, and they tried to throw a quick screen to Deontay Burnett. There were 2 defenders on outside, and Michael Pittman kind of walls off his guy. The other defender's flying up, and he's not going to get to Deontay Burnett. If he hits Deontay Burnett in the chest, Deontay goes around the outside, and he's probably gone for a touchdown. Instead, he throws it way over his head. Like, Deontay Burnett jumps up and doesn't even get a fingertip on it. Like, that is so uncharacteristic of what we've come to expect from Sam Darnold. That's the things that are different this year. There's been throws that have been behind guys. I mean, Stephen Mitchell a couple times, was trying to reach back to try to get a ball. That's just, Sam Darnold last year was like, wow, he's just so pinpoint accurate. I think that's the biggest difference this year for Sam Darnold right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The last one, Tester Troy says, before we end, who's going to win and what will the score be? Starting with Ryan.
Who's going to win? I think this is another. I think Utah's been really good against the spread. USC's been terrible with against the spread. The spread's like 12 or 12.5 or something. I kind of think USC's going to win a close one, more like a 31-28 sort of thing. So I don't think they're going to cover or even come close to covering. I could see this one going either way, though. Like, I don't feel super confident that the Trojans are going to win this one the way they're playing. I just don't. So I'll pick USC like a 3-point win. But what do you guys think?
Go for it.
Well, Shotgun just put me on the spot. I don't know. I mean, Utah looks good on paper, and like they could have won against Stanford for turnovers, but USC's offense is just not consistent enough to give me confidence in like, oh, they're gonna win this. Also, the O-line wasn't really tested against Oregon State, so what if they're not good against Utah?
Utah's way better. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I'm like, I can see the offense just not clicking.
Utah didn't force a turnover against Stanford, which was weird, and you kind of get the feeling they're going to want to force some, and USC's been giving the ball away, so that could be a big factor.
No, I don't think they're going to want to force any.
No, they're just not.
No.
They're fine.
That
was something that Whittingham brought up in his press conference, so that was going to be a point of emphasis, like getting the ball. Stanford doesn't turn the ball over a lot. USC does, so that could be a problem.
Wasn't that the big thing last Utah game? Wasn't like Clay like, oh, it's the turnover margin. Whoever wins that is going to win the game. And they did like turnover drills and like wet ball drills and then
turn the ball over still.
Yeah.
Fumbled.
Yeah. I don't know. You go. Putting you on the spot.
You go? I think if Tyler Huntley plays, I think Utah wins. I think if Troy Williams plays, I think USC wins. USC is not given any confidence in the offense. I mean, Tuesday, the offense just looked bad.
Dan Weber disagreed. Dan Weber thought the offense looked good on Tuesday.
What I saw, I did not think they looked good. I mean, there was drop passes, just like the ball hitting the ground way too much. It just didn't look good, in my opinion. And last week I thought they played really well at the beginning of the week. So maybe it's the complete opposite and they played great. So we'll see in that regard. It's always tough to go against a big point spread when Vegas, 13 seems like a big point spread to me in this matchup. So I always just think maybe Vegas knows something about Tyler Huntley not playing. So I'm actually going to pick USC to win this game.
All right.
But if Tyler Huntley plays, I think all bets are off on my side.
And we won't know until kickoff. I do think it makes a big difference. But, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. All right, I guess we should wrap it up. We got to get
You going to make a prediction or what?
I was like, do I get to slip through without a prediction?
Oh.
I'm going to say USC wins 35-28.
So confident.
Yeah.
Okay.
Question mark.
That's by a touchdown. So no one's picking Utah to
5 touchdowns.
No one's picking USC to cover the spread.
Yeah, I don't have any
Unless,
confidence.
Shotgun,
in
you're
the
not doing it. Yeah.
No.
Okay. It's a big spread. USC's 1-5 against the spread, so we'll see. But I think this is one, if you win ugly and it's some crazy thing, that's fine. This is such an important game. It doesn't matter if you win this one ugly. Yeah. Just win this one.
This is huge in the Pac-12 South.
Yeah.
I mean, you win this game, you're basically in the driver's seat. Unless you think Arizona's that good, they're going to beat somebody.
Yeah.
If you think Khalil Tate's going to run for another 300 yards every game, USC tried to get him to come play, something else besides quarterback.
They have.
So USC Twitter and all the message board people, this is a game. If USC wins ugly, please don't complain. This is one, it's fine. This is one you're okay to win ugly. If Notre Dame next weekend, you win that one ugly on the road, those are fine. Oregon State, you want to complain? Okay. These are the two, big games on the schedule right now. So getting a win here is the most important thing. All right, I think we're going to wrap this up because we got the Family Feud podcast coming up with Shotgun and Keely. They're going to record that right here, right now, well, as soon as we're done. So thank you so much for tuning in to USCFootball.com live here every Thursday at noon, talking USC versus Utah. That's Shotgun, that's Keely. I'm Ryan. Thanks for tuning in, and we will talk to you next time.